Everyone loves a good underdog story. There's nothing quite like watching someone start at the bottom of the proverbial ladder and climbing their way into the penthouse of success. But what if this sentiment applied to not just an individual, but to the entire region in which they inhabited? For a new challenge, I thought it would be fun to play as a pawn who starts with absolutely nothing. And I mean nothing. Our resources, nothing. Our skills, nothing. Our body, nothing. Our starting area, a vast expanse of, you guessed it, empty desert. I'll be starting as a tribal colonist who is lacking all the essential ingredients needed for survival. The only thing we do have is a burning passion to learn and a little bit of fighting instinct. Can we avoid the pitfalls along the journey towards achieving self-growth? I hope you're ready, because you're about to watch a whole lot of nothing. Everyone meet Uselesses S. Cant. As his name implies, he's not particularly skilled at, well, anything, but he has a desire to learn. Now, you may be asking yourself, why is Les wandering naked in the middle of the desert? Is he on some spiritual pilgrimage or suffering from the aftermath of a wild party? No, of course not. What an absurd idea. Why would you even think that? In truth, the impoverished young man had come out here to disappear. Forever. He didn't want to die necessarily, but he felt as though his presence was a burden to everyone around him. He had lost his family to a plague a year back. Now he was the town's inconvenient responsibility. He was considered nothing, a nobody without a home, and anyone who treated him more than that were chastised for such. He was too old to be taken in by another family, and too young to know how to make it on his own. Just some kid stuck in a void of uncertainty and inexperience. And now he was here. It probably felt good in a way. All the pressures and judgments of society had now fallen off, like slipping from a pair of heavy shackles. After days of aimlessly meandering about the desert, he found an ancient lakebed. The parched flat looked like it hadn't seen water in decades, perhaps centuries even. He wasn't sure how, but from the moment he saw it, he knew this was the place he was destined to be. He would somehow find a way to transform this nothingness into somethingness. But for now, he had to focus on keeping himself alive. We needed to locate a place to set up camp. The soft sand from the lakebed was miserable to work with, but fortunately, there was regular sand along the edges, and better yet, there was even some rock flooring in certain places. Eventually, he spotted some irrigable land to the northwest. It wasn't great, but it would do for now. We planned some growing zones in what little soil was available to us, and got to work. Luckily, Les found seeds in the dung of various animals throughout his days of wandering, and the feces still contained enough moisture to aid the seeds in their initial stages of growth. And don't get any ideas. We're not going to try to drink the water out of the poop like a Man vs. Wild. Seriously, don't do that. That guy faked a lot of stuff. Les struggled to till the unyielding soil, but he was learning fast. And in time, the first signs of life, however meager, began to take root. He set up some storage zones and work areas, and even made a sleeping spot on the rough marble. It wouldn't feel great on his back, but it was better than getting sand everywhere. If there was one thing that Les knew well beyond his years, it was that balance was necessary with all things. He created a schedule for himself to help manage his time and energy. Each day would demand several hours of labor, but always ended with 2 precious hours of recreation. Discipline and persistence were keys to sustained growth. He had learned that when practicing martial arts in his youth, and though it had been many years, he still retained some of those fighting instincts. After a bit more planting, darkness soon fell upon the land, and he laid his head on the rough stone and drifted off to sleep. During the night, a pack of hyenas wandered into the area. These ferocious beasts had a notorious bite and were well-known scavengers. Les needed to be careful, else he might become their next meal. The next morning, Les rebandaged his wounds with sand. It wasn't noticeable yesterday, but he was just as injured as he appears now. He had suffered a bad fall down a rocky hill 2 days prior, and was still suffering from the painful wounds. That evening, the desert winds blew in our favor. A tortoise had wandered in from the east. One of the older hyenas caught its scent and recklessly attacked. An intense battle ensued, and for a moment, it seemed like the hyena might actually lose. But in the end, the tortoise fell. Les waited patiently while the hyena ate its fill, but he was quick to gather up the remaining scraps soon after. He was the scavenger now. Without a moment to spare, he butchered the tortoise where it fell and consumed the raw turtle meat. It tasted awful, but it would keep him sated for now. We hauled up the remaining bits and studied the hyena from afar. Thanks to the tortoise, it too would soon succumb to its mortal wounds. Then we would have an even bigger meal. That was unless the other hyenas got to it first. The following morning, Les spotted the hyena writhing in pain and put it out of its misery. A few hours later, another one of the hyenas decided to help itself to his meat supply. Unfortunately, there was nothing we could do to stop it. The beast was too powerful to fight in his condition. Les fantasized about attacking the creature, but even in his daydream, it still ended poorly. The rest of the afternoon was spent planting more crops and going for the occasional walk. Each growing zone was dedicated to a specific plant. For food, there was potatoes and rice, and for utility, there was fiber corn and cotton. The seeds brought him hope for a future full of goods and food, and helped him ignore the starvation that was creeping in. Sometime later, a beautiful woman named Fulla Knutson had entered the area. There's a joke in there somewhere, I'm sure of it. She was careful with her words, and likely trying to suss out why Les was out here in the first place. He explained a little bit about his situation, and he had learned just as much about her. She was from a mercenary group called the Muggers. They had quite the reputation in the region. Dangerous fighters who fought for silver, not banners. Les remembered seeing a few of them in his town, Rustburg, in the past. She said that they passed through these wastes from time to time, but she didn't mention why, and he wasn't about to ask. She told us that the group had changed her life for the better. She used to be a hostess in training, and now she was a gigolo by choice. She was an excellent fighter, a feat which was made even more impressive considering she was a genie. Her kin were known for being wise, yet delicate beings. Their genetic makeup hindered their effectiveness in battle. Les can tell just by looking at Fulla that she overcame those odds. She told us to never let our circumstances of birth define who we were. Such wise words that Les repeated over and over again in his mind, determined to make them stick. Unfortunately, she didn't have any rations left to offer us, or maybe she just wasn't willing. So Les came up with another plan. The nearby hyena would repay us for the food it stole. He had waited until night when the beast was asleep, and then snuck up on it. With all his strength, he swung down and punched the beast in the neck. The blow did nothing more than rouse the creature, and it jolted awake and launched itself at Les. He deftly dodged the bite and ran through the darkness back to where Fulla was waiting. With viper-like reflexes, she whipped out her charged pistol and fired several shots into the hyena. The beast charged at her instead, but it crumbled to the ground well before reaching its target. I appreciate that, he said between gasps of air.
Watch yourself, kid,
she replied.
The first hunt is free, but the next time I'm gonna charge,
she said with a smirk and a wink. Starving, Les wasted no time tearing apart the hyena's body and eating the raw meat. Fulla didn't say anything, she just watched with an unreadable face. Was she disgusted? Amused? Both? He couldn't tell for sure. Fulla offered to stay the night and kept watch while we slept, in case any other predators got curious. Les was too tired to argue, and soon sleep found us once again. Early the next morning, Fulla wished Les luck, even though the young man was fast asleep, and she started away across the sands. He never got to say goodbye, or even thank you. She probably preferred it that way. When he eventually woke, he spotted a dead tortoise to the south. The remaining hyena had hunted it down, and hadn't sustained any damage either. Now all that remained was a tortoise, a hyena, and a whole lot of sand. By day 4, we had finished sowing the crops, and focused instead on organizing and cleaning. He didn't have very much, but he still took pride in it. A new animal appeared to the south, this time an ostrich. The fearsome bird was likely too tough for us to take down, so it was safe for now. After tidying up the area, Les expanded his cleaning efforts to other places in the region. Sure, it wasn't necessary, but it kept his hands busy and helped stave off the boredom from his mind. Later that evening, a feral child wandered into the area. Heknaz Keknath, a 12-year-old Impid. First genies, now Impids. It seems this desert is home to many exotic people. We tried to talk to them, but they ran away each time. This harsh desert was no place for a kid, but there was nothing more we could do. Maybe in time they would join us. In order to ensure that he had enough food, Les began another potato field. He also planned out a desert growing zone. He had sown some butternut squash seeds the day before, but they weren't doing well in the regular soil. That's when he recalled watching his mother growing crops in the sand when he was a boy. Some plants could only be grown in certain types of soil, and these seeds thrived in desert climates. Things were calm for a few hours. Then, a burst of activity happened all at once. Les was attacked by a raider named Dustox who appeared from the east. He was a gardener from a group called the Cancer Men. Wait, isn't that a Pokemon name? Dustox? Les was oblivious to the incoming threat and continued sowing the crops. Luckily for him, Dustox's expertise was in pond design, not fighting. What a horrible person for them to send out to do their bidding. Only a short time later, Les noticed a chaotic scene to the south. The tortoise was dead and partially eaten, and both Hyenas and the hyena were badly injured. It seems that the hyena had started a fight with the tortoise, but it had lost to the shelled beast. Hyenas, probably starving, attacked the wounded tortoise himself and won, but at a great cost. Les wanted to help, but the child wouldn't let him get near. He didn't blame them for being so distrustful, but he wished there was something he could do. The raider began his assault at sundown and made their way across the dried lakebed. Like pieces on a chessboard, the two combatants took up positions in the sand. Les noticed them as they neared, swinging a steel club wildly above their head. The attacker swung his club downward, and Les threw out a high block, which sent it wide, and immediately countered it with a punch of his own. Already he could feel the rust falling off, and he grew more confident with each dodge and punch. His opponent, despite their weapon advantage, seemed to be growing increasingly nervous. They swung their club with reckless abandon, but each attack missed worse than the one before it. Bloodied and panicked, Dustox roared like a feral dog and swung down with all their might. Les easily avoided the telegraphed attack and threw a devastating punch into the raider's right arm, and the powerful strike dropped the attacker to the ground. In their panic, the wounded raider crawled away, trying to put as much distance between him and the naked desert man as possible. For just a moment, Les considered letting him go, but he knew men like this didn't like to lose. He would come back for revenge, but with more firepower and friends. There was no choice. Les wouldn't let them escape. He stalked the assailant and threw a powerful axe kick down upon the man. A loud crack rang out across the area as the raider's right leg snapped in half. Dustox wailed in agony and was no longer crawling away. Les turned from his opponent and tried to save Hyenas, but it was too late. The child was dead. He blamed the man for causing the entire mess, so instead of killing him, he stripped the raider of their shorts and let them suffer throughout the night. A just punishment for such a horrible person. Hey everyone, I just wanted to take some time here to say thank you. I could never have imagined the channel blowing up like it did, and I'm so grateful to all of you who made it possible. I'm truly humbled by all the support and kind words, and I can't express enough how much it means to me. There are many, many more stories to come, and episode 2 for this one is coming shortly. Again, thank you. And until next time, friends, take care.